Hello guys, namaste, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Anisha Singh Chauhan and we finally meet. Actually, most of you guys are not subscribed, so this might not be the first time we're actually meeting. So if you're looking for something fun, dark and mysterious, then you're at the right place. So do not forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon so that every time I'm here, you'll get to know about it. Also, the 50% of you guys who always watch my video but don't subscribe. So do it this time, because last time I checked, there's no any clause in the tax payment given by the Modi government yet, where you have to pay taxes to every time you subscribe. Whatever, I'm just talking gibberish, so ignore it. But yes, subscribe to my channel right now. So today is Mystery Murder Monday. Actually, no, it is Unsolved Mystery Murder Monday. Now, I used to upload my videos on Sundays, but then I thought of doing a different playlist altogether, like a different series of spooky Sundays. So M as in murder and Monday. So let's start with Murder Mystery Monday. And today we're going to talk about alphabet murders. Yes, it's such an intriguing name to a murder, right? Now, why is it called alphabet murder? You'll get to know about it. Now, these alphabet murders, which includes of 3 murder cases of pre-adolescent girls, took place between 1971 and 1973. Now, the reason why it is called alphabet murders is because these victims individually had the same initial in their name, in their surname. Also, where the dead bodies were found, like their corpses were found individually, respectively, those places' names also started with the same initials as their name and surname. So if somebody's name starts with A and the surname is A, then their dead body is going to be found in Amsterdam or some place that starts with A. Getting it? Okay. So let's start off with the first murder case. The first girl was Carmen Colon. She was a Puerto Rican and she had, settled in Rochester, New York's a small, let's just say, shady neighborhood. Okay. So on 16th November 1971, Carmen Colon went out to get some errands done and also to buy some medicines for her grandmother. Now, she was last seen at the pharmaceutical store around 4:20 p.m. where she was not given the prescribed medicines because it wasn't processed yet. So she was very disappointed and she was like, okay, I'll come back again. I gotta go. And she left. Now, according to an eyewitness, somewhere around that pharmaceutical store, they saw that she was talking to some man sitting inside a supposedly Ford Pinto kind of a car, which was tan, beige, and brown toned color. So she was talking to this person who was sitting inside the car, and it looked like a very familiar, friendly conversation. Now, that was supposedly the last time they saw her in that locality, in that neighborhood. Now, the same evening, around 7:50 p.m., the family reported her missing because she didn't come back supposedly from that errands job. Now, on Interstate 490, around 38 motorists, they saw something really weird. They saw this girl who was in the car, or some articles say that she was running, so I don't know what happened exactly, but supposedly she was in this car and she was half naked from her waist down and she was waving her hand crazily, trying to grab people's attention who were, on that interstate, and she was screaming for help. And then somebody from inside the car grabbed her hand and put her inside the car, locked the door, and just ran away. Now, these 38 motorists, they didn't immediately call anyone, like any police department, or didn't complain about it, which they should have, but they didn't until 3 days later, which was too late, because 2 days later, from 16th of November, 2 teenagers found Carmen Colon's dead body near a small rural village called Churchville. Yes, Carmen Colon Churchwell, CCC. Now you're getting it what I tried to say, why it is called, this entire case is called alphabet murder. So initially, what happened was when they saw the body, they thought it was just a thrown out trash mannequin. But on closer look, they recognized that it was actually a dead body of a 10-year-old girl. And yeah, she was, like I said, she was half naked from her waist down, and she was battered in a very cruel manner, and could be clearly seen that she had a lot of defensive wounds. Her coats were somewhere else, her pants were found somewhere else. Like, it was a total blunder and ugly scenario over there. Now, on further investigation and obviously autopsy and everything, they found out that she was raped and strangulated manually to her death. There were a lot of nail marks on her body, and it showed that she resisted really hard. And this entire thing was just sick in its own way. Now, immediately after that, a lot of police investigations started in a very, very serious and in a detailed manner. But unfortunately, they couldn't come to any conclusion. There were a lot of billboards set up for long, long months and, asking for information. There were telephone hotline numbers. And the police department, they promised anonymity to whoever would, pass on information for arrest and conviction of someone, like who was the perpetrator or who was the murderer. But then again, it was a moot point. Now, by the end of the year, December 21, they concluded that there were only 3 prime suspects of this case. So this was the first case. We'll talk about the suspects later in the end when I cover all the, cases. Now, 17 months later, on 2nd of April 1973, 11-year-old Wanda Valkovitz, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, yeah. So she gets disappeared from the east side of Rochester. Now, again, like Carmen Colon, she goes out of the house to run some errands, buy some groceries from a deli. And around 5:15 p.m. was her last seen at that deli. Now, there are some eyewitnesses who said that they did see her around her locality leaning against a fence and adjusting the bags that were in her hands. It was probably very heavy for that little girl. Now, after that, nobody knows what happened to Wanda Valkovitz. Now, at 8 p.m. the same evening, the mother, Joyce, she lodges a report, an FIR, to the police department of her daughter getting missed. As soon as the FIR is lodged, there is huge investigation going on. More than 80 police officers, investigators got into this case, and they were looking at every square miles, but they couldn't find her. Now, next day at 10:15 a.m., her body was found discarded at the base of a hillside alongside an access road to State Route 104. And her face was face down on that ditch, and it could be clearly seen that she had rolled over that embankment. So that means that somebody threw her body out of a running vehicle, and supposedly a car. And unlike Carmen Colon, she was completely and fully dressed. But it could be clearly seen that she was redressed after her murder or, after her rape. Yes, she was again sexually assaulted. They could find semen samples and pubic hair on her body. And there were a lot of fingernails marks on her entire body. Now, the cause of death was strangulation with the help of a ligature, which probably could be anything like a belt. Now, the strange thing that they found on her body was a white cat fur. Now, nobody in Wanda's family owned a pet which had white fur, basically any pet of white color. So that was a very strange thing. Now, again, the same thing happened like in Carmen Colon's case. There were billboards, there were telephone hotline. The police department received tons and tons of phone call with, again, no end to it. So in the end, they again couldn't find or couldn't arrest anyone in Wanda Valkovitz's abduction, rape and strangulation to death case. On 21st of October 1973, later on, WOKR, a television's channel, they made a 30-minute episode on Wanda Valkovitz's abduction case. Now, the reason was so that they could reach as much people as possible, and in the end of the episode, they gave out a number through which people could call the police department and, transfer or relay any information for conviction or arrest. But again, after a lot of phone calls, they couldn't get anything. Now, initially, nobody thought that these two cases, as in Carmen Colon and Wanda Valkovitz case, could be from the same murderer or same perpetrator. We'll find out later why and how did they even conclude to this. Now let's talk about the third case, which took place on 26th of November 1973. Michelle Mainzer, who was 11-year-old then, didn't come back from her school, so her mother reported her missing at 5 p.m. the same evening. Supposedly, she was last seen at a departmental store where she had gone after school to retrieve her mother's purse, which her mother had left earlier that day. After that, nobody knows what happened to Michelle Mainzer. Nobody saw her in a car, though there were a couple of phone calls from supposedly eyewitnesses who said that they saw her talking to someone. Again, beige, tan, brown colored car, but there are no confirmations again about it. Later on, the police department receives a call from someone telling them that he saw a girl who he is very sure that the girl he saw was Michelle Mainzer. So apparently this man was on Route 350 near Walworth, where he saw a guy out of his car on the middle of that road with a girl, and he had flat tire. So he thought of helping this man. Initially, he didn't find anything suspicious, but as soon as he approached him, this man shoved the little girl behind his back and stood right in front of his driving license so that apparently nobody could recognize what the numbers were or note it down. So when this guy approached and asked him if he could help him, he got very aggressive, showed his fist. So this man just backs up and he goes back to his car, but though he could in the end note at least last couple of numbers of the driving license, and then he just drove off. Now on 20th of November, her body was found around 10:30 a.m. near a small town called Mainzer, which was 15 miles away from Rochester. And yeah, again, like Wanda Valkovitz, she was fully dressed, but after autopsy, it was found out that she was raped, sexually assaulted, and was strangulated with the help of a ligature, probably a thin rope. And also, she had extensive blunt trauma on her body. Also, like in Wanda Valkovitz's case, they found white cat's fur on her body. After autopsy, they also found something which could also be seen in Wanda Valkovitz's case, was that she was fed cheeseburger. Now, according to a phone call from an eyewitness, they saw Michelle Mainzer with a Caucasian man approximately between 25 to 35 years of age, who was 6 feet tall and almost weighed 75 kgs, feeding her a cheeseburger. Supposedly and coincidentally, the exact thing was found in her stomach. And Wanda Valkovitz, in her case, was fed custard. This is what happened with the 3 individual cases. More than 800 people in altogether in these 3 cases were under suspicion, but they couldn't pick up one person. The investigation was a null point, and nobody was arrested or convicted for this case. But we do have 4 prime suspects of the alphabet murder case. Let's start with the suspects. So our first suspect is Miguel Colon. Yes, Miguel Colon was Carmen Colon's paternal uncle, and after the parents got divorced, he got pretty close with the mother in a very platonic manner. He was very friendly with Carmel. Now, the reason why he was brought under suspicion was because as soon as she was reported missing, the police started investigating with the family members. That's the protocol usually with missing children's case. Now, during the questionnaire, he was very suspicious. His body language and his answers were very suspicious. And supposedly, 4 days after his niece got abducted, raped, and strangled to death, he flew away from Rochester, New York to Puerto Rico, to his origin, before calling a friend and telling him that he did something very mean and very bad over here in Rochester and he has to flee the city. Now, in his defense, Miguel Colon said that he just got scared after reading the newspaper articles which said that he was suspect in his niece's murder case, and because of that, he just fled away from the city. Later on, he came back for questioning and for interviewing, and he gave an alibi, but it couldn't be, corresponded with someone who could say that, okay, this was really what happened and he is innocent. Now, another strange thing was a week before Carmen Colon's murder, Miguel Colon bought a new car, supposedly a brown, tan, beigeish new car. And on forensic investigation, it came out that the entire car was washed roughly and tremendously using a very hard detergent. When the dealership was asked about it, they said that we didn't wash the car before selling it. So why did he do that? Like, he just bought the car a week ago, so what was the need to wash it? Another thing was that they could find a toy which belonged to Carmen Colon. Again, in his defense, he came out saying that I was family, I used to travel her and take her to school and places like that. So she might have dropped it anywhere, anytime, right? Now, again, with Miguel Colon, there were a lot of circumstantial evidences, but no physical evidence. So he wasn't convicted or arrested for this case. But later on in 1991, he committed suicide before shooting his wife and her brother. So yes, that was Miguel Colon. Let's move on to our second suspect, who is Dennis Termini. Dennis Termini was a 25-year-old firefighter who lived in Rochester, New York. Now, this guy was also called as the garage rapist because between 1971 to 1973, he raped more than 14 teenage girls. Also, after Michelle Mainzer's case, 2 days later, he was found abducting a teenage girl, but then she started screaming and he just fled away. After this incident, he again goes on and abducting a teenager, but this time the police comes to the point and start chasing him. Now, he stops at a parking lot, takes out a gun from his pocket and shoots himself. So yeah, that's the end. Now, at the moment, they didn't do any DNA testing or corresponding, but later on in January 2007, they exhumed his body for a DNA testing. Now, the DNA samples were corresponded with that of Wanda Valkovitz, the samples that were found on her body, but unfortunately, it didn't match. Now again, his DNA samples weren't matched and weren't corresponded with Carmen Colon or Michelle Mainzer. So we don't know if he was the one who did it to the other two girls. Now that was Dennis Termini. Now let's talk about Kenneth Bianchi. So if you are someone who likes talking about crime, who is into crime, like not doing it, but talking about, studying and story and researching and all that stuff, you might have heard about this person who was one of the two people who were convicted and arrested and punished for the Hillside Strangler in California, where he strangled along with his cousin 10 girls. Now the question is, why was he suspected to be the murderer behind these cases? Now there was an evidence found on Wanda Valkovitz's body. That evidence could only be found in 20% of males population, and guess what? Kenneth Bianchi was included in that 20% male population. Another thing was they tried to match the wrist print that was found on her neck, but unfortunately what happened was it didn't match again. But then again, it could be just because that the print matching took place a couple of years after the murder, and because of elasticity, and the wrist print could obviously change all the time. So again, he was ruled out like all the other suspects. Now, our last suspect is Joseph Nasso. He was arrested in 2011 for murder of 4 prostitute women in California, which again is linked to Californian alphabet murder, because all these prostitutes, their names and surnames started with the same initials. In fact, coincidentally, for some reason, one of the prostitutes' name was also Carmen Colon. And no, she is not anywhere related to, the first murder of the Alphabet Rochester case. Also, he had a journal in which he wrote in a very descriptive, detailed way of how he did murders and how he raped women. So the first 4 obviously were the alphabet ones, right? With the same initials and same names. The other 2 ones were normal girls, which did not have that synchronization. And the next 4, the last 4 probably, they were unidentified. Again, this man, his DNA sample were done and everything was checked up. It did not match, so he was ruled out, but then he is convicted and still in jail for the murder of the 4 prostitutes. That was all about the murder case. There were a lot of similarities, if you ask me, with the Rochester alphabet murder. Like, all these girls were pre-adolescent. They came from a Catholic family, poor Catholic family, and they were not so good in studies. They were basically outcasted by their peers in their school. So, I don't know, this is the similarity. Now, again, the experts and investigators, they don't likely believe that all these 3 murders were done by a same person or by the same group of perpetrators or perpetrator. The reason behind is that in Carmen Colon's case, under further investigation, it clearly can be seen that whoever murdered and raped and strangulated Carmen Colon was familiar with her. So yes, if you ask my opinion, I would clearly, bluntly say out in huge words that I believe that it was the uncle Miguel Colon who did it to his niece, that is Carmen Colon. Now, the investigators and experts, like I was saying, they believe that it is very much possible that Wanda Valkovitz and Michelle Mainzer, they could have been a single person's work. But Carmen Colon is totally a different case in many people's belief. Now, the reason behind is because, see, unlike the other two girls, she was half-dressed. And the most prime reason behind this was that Wanda and Michelle, they were strangulated from behind with a ligature like belt or a thin rope respectively. Whereas in Carmen Colon's case, she was strangulated from front, like straight on manually. So this could be a clear difference. But then again, I don't know, there could be various reasons. Maybe it's only one person behind these cases, but I believe is what I think is what happened was supposedly Miguel Colon deed with his niece. And some sick guy around in that neighborhood got inspired, which we read about in novels and crazy movies, that people do get inspired from criminals and murderers. So he got inspired because he was a sick person and he thought of, why shouldn't I do something like this, catch girls with the similar initials and dispose of their body in a town which started with their name's initial. But then again, the loophole with this scenario is that for a person to find out a girl who was pre-adolescent, who was outcasted, who came from a Catholic family, with all those criterias, that person would require to do a lot of research and a lot of stalking. And stalking is an exposure for that person, for that criminal. And no criminal would take, and especially in this scenario, that criminal wouldn't take that risk, right? So again, the big question over here is there any link between all these three murder cases? Or was it someone who just did it individually, like three different murderers, three different cases, and just all these of three cases are mere coincidences? But then again, it's too much of a coincidence. I don't know, it is very unsettling for me to think that it could be a coincidence. But then again, it's my opinion. What about yours? Tell me, what do you think happened? Do you think it was one person, one perpetuator, or a group of perpetuators behind these alphabet murders, or was it an individual person doing plays and games? That is your question. Do not forget to answer and give your opinion and feedback and everything, whatever you feel about this video in the comment section, or you can directly message me on my Instagram handle. Also, do not forget to subscribe to my channel, hit that bell icon, comment, like, share, do everything you want to do. But be safe, you guys. Outside, the world is not safe. There are a lot of creepy people. And especially if your name starts with the same initial. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, no. It's not something to be made joke of. Whatever. Be safe, take care, and have fun. Bye-bye.